Dear Senator Heinrich and Senator Lujan, we, the undersigned organizations, urge you to co-sponsor and vote in favor of the joint resolutions of disapproval introduced by Senators Sanders, Welsh, and Merkley regarding several specific major arms sales to the government of Israel.
The joint resolutions of disapproval would suspend the transfer of some of the weapons that the Israeli government has used in strikes that have killed tens of thousands of civilians, including aid workers and journalists in Gaza over the last year. Independent human rights and conflict monitors have thoroughly documented the Israeli military's use of weapons from the United States in attacks that have killed Palestinian civilians. President Biden has described Israeli government attacks as indiscriminate. The joint resolutions of disapproval would block certain sales of joint direct attack munitions, JDAMs, and tank shells, which the Israeli military has repeatedly used in attacks that have killed civilians in densely populated areas. The resolutions do not implicate missile defense systems.
Israeli military attacks have killed more than 40,000 Palestinians and decimated Gaza's hospitals, schools, critical infrastructure, and residential housing. Human rights organizations have concluded that the Israeli military has repeatedly violated international humanitarian law, and humanitarian groups have stressed that Israeli forces continue to restrict the delivery of humanitarian aid as hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza are on the precipice of starvation and suffering from the spread of deadly diseases, including polio.
The Israeli military is also carrying out attacks in Lebanon, including recent strikes in densely populated areas of Beirut that demonstrate a similar disregard for the protection of civilians.
Continued arms transfers to the Israeli government are contrary to U.S. law and the Biden's administration's own arms transfer policy, which include restrictions on arms transfers to any country based on human rights, international humanitarian law, and humanitarian assistance criteria. For example, U.S. law prohibits military aid to governments that restrict the delivery of U.S. humanitarian assistance, as demonstrated by the National Security Memorandum 20 process. The Biden administration has not complied with these standards.
The Senate will soon have the opportunity to demonstrate that it opposes further suffering and stands for the rule of law and the protection of civilians by supporting the joint resolutions of disapproval introduced on September 25th. We endorse Senator Sanders, Welch, and Merkley's resolutions and urge all senators to co-sponsor and vote in favor of their passage.
Following groups and organizations representing thousands of New Mexicans signed in support: New Mexico Alliance for Justice in Palestine, Albuquerque Islamic Center, Veterans for Peace, Joan Duffy, Chapter 55 in Santa Fe, Adelante Progressive Caucus, Democratic Party of New Mexico, PDA Progressives for Democracy in America in Central New Mexico, New Mexico Working Families Party, American Friends Service Committee in New Mexico, Jewish Voice for Peace Action in Albuquerque, Solidarity 2020 and Beyond, Albuquerque Peace and Justice Center, Stop the War Machine,
Santa Feans for Justice in Palestine, Los Alamos Study Group, Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, also known as Yucca, Southwest Organizing Project, also known as SWAP, Veterans for Peace, Chapter 63, Albuquerque, Friends of Sabeel, Albuquerque, Olay, Albuquerque DSA, Albuquerque Mennonite Church, First Congregational United Church of Christ.
Northern New Mexico SURGE, the acronym for Showing Up for Racial Justice, New Energy Economy, New Mexico Chapter of American Friends of Combatants for Peace, Center for Civic Policy, Progress Now, New Mexico, Muslims and Jews United, Faith Roots Reproductive Action, Together for Brothers, New Mexico Climate Justice, Innovation Law Lab.
New Mexico Comunidades en Acción y de Fe, CAFE, NMCAN, Las Cruces for Palestine, New Mexico Asian Family Center, Organized Power in Numbers, Cambio, Teen Years LLC, Santa Fe Friends Meeting Peace and Social Justice Committee, Indivisible Albuquerque, Albuquerque Friends Meeting, Religious Society of Friends, Quakers.
Casa de Salud, Environmental Justice Caucus, Democratic Party of New Mexico, Los Jardines Institute, New Mexico Jews for a Free Palestine, University of New Mexico Faculty and Staff for Justice in Palestine, University of New Mexico Students for Justice in Palestine, CIR, which is Committee on Interns and Residents, SCIU, University of New Mexico Hospital, Citizens Caring for the Future, Volunteers for Immigrant Detention, Albuquerque, which is VIDA, VIDA, Santa Fe DSA, Law Students Against Imperialism, LASI.